Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
Two oil-rich countries are up in arms this weekend, though you'll only be hearing about one of them elsewhere.
In the Sudan, or the half of it that's left after a foreign-sponsored sundering of the country north and south, a revolution is underway against the authoritarian military ruler General Bashir, who has been in power for 30 years.
Bashir is a regional hub for the pan-Islamic Muslim Brotherhood, though years of isolation and sanctions have pushed him ever closer to Saudi Arabia.
His people, it seems, may have had enough. Steep price increases of bread and other staples sparked outrage, and the protest movement is now challenging for state power.
Joining us today is Khalid Omar Yusuf, General Secretary of the opposition Sudan Congress Party. Welcome on board the Sputnik. The last time I met General Bashir was before his last presidential election, when he promised me solemnly that he wouldn't be standing. And of course, this whole uproar now in the country is because it's clear he was planning to go on and on, wasn't he?
Thank you, George, for having me here. Firstly, Bashir is not elected at the first place. He came to power through a military coup at 1989. Since then, Sudan has been ruled by one of the most brutal kleptocracy in the world, I believe. Since then, the regime of al-Bashir divided the country, sent the people, millions of people outside the country as refugees and inside as IDPs, killed hundreds of thousands of Sudanese. And what's going on now is accumulation for the 30 years of oppression against the Sudanese people. The Sudanese people prove one thing, that they are very determined to keep the resistance, whatever the brutality of the regime that is against them. During the last 30 years, people form different kind of resistance against the regime, peaceful resistance and even armed resistance. And after 30 years, I think it is time to change.
Now, he has always been able to count on the military, on the armed forces. He is a general, and as you say, that's how he came to power in the first place. But there comes a point in these situations when the army will no longer fire on the people. Have we reached that stage in Sudan yet?
Actually, the army is not firing the people, but national security forces is firing the people. There are militias that affiliated to al-Bashir firing the people. Now the death toll is 50 people during the last month of protest. So there is firing against the people. There are many kinds of brutality to contain and to oppress the protesters. But I do believe the Sudanese people, by their peaceful means of struggle, defeat the bullets and fire of the armed forces that belong to Bashir.
So I believe it's widespread throughout the country, isn't it? Not just concentrated in the capital.
Actually, it's the most widespread revolution in the history of the country. We had two revolutions before it, 1985 and 1964, and it's tremendously different because, firstly, in 1985 and 1964, the protests started from Khartoum and ended in Khartoum. This revolution is different because it started from Damascene in Blue Nile state. The students of high schools went to street in Damascene at 13th of December, and the second city that followed Damascene was Al-Fashir, the capital of North Darfur state. So it started from outside Khartoum, and then it moves to Khartoum, and for more than 30 cities in Sudan. At Thursday, 24th of January, the protest that has been called by the Alliance of Forces signed the Declaration of Freedom and Change, spread over 30 cities and villages all around Sudan at the same time. So it's wide spread, and I do believe we are very close to the point of ending the 30 dark years of al-Bashir.
And this alliance, what forces are in it and what forces are outside of it?
This alliance formulated from the opposition parties and the professional associations. There are two major opposition alliances, Sudan Call and National Consensus Forces, and there is a professional association who were the first entity called the people to go to street at 25th of December. Then after that, a declaration called the Declaration of Freedom and Change has been signed between the professional associations and Sudan Call and National Consensus Forces.
And who's outside? Anyone outside of any significance?
There are two armed movements outside this declaration, SPLM, Al-Hilu, and the Sudan Liberation Movement, Abdul Wahid. But nevertheless, we share the same calls, same calling. We have a kind of coordination to moving in the street, and we hope that by the time all of the Sudanese opposition forces will be under the same umbrella.
Now, one of the problems, many problems for Bashir, is that if he demits office and goes anywhere, and perhaps whether he goes anywhere or not, he'll be promptly arrested on the International Criminal Court indictments that are outstanding against him. Some have speculated that one way of making him demit office peacefully without further bloodshed is that the ICC should drop their charges against him and allow him to go peacefully into exile. You see any traction in that?
First of all, I believe that this is his problem. It's not our problem. But I can understand the debate about the relation between justice and peace, and justice and transition. For us, we do believe that there are no sustainable peace and transition without justice. So there are many forms of justice that could be, but the most important thing that you shouldn't sacrifice justice for any reasons. So the debate about the destiny of al-Bashir, as I'm saying to you, it could go anyway, but we are not going to sacrifice justice for any reason.
Now, he's still there, as we speak at least, so he clearly still has some strength, some alliance. What are his regional alliances? He has been recently growing closer to Saudi Arabia. A day or two ago, he was in Qatar. Does he have support from the Gulf?
Actually, when the revolution started, people of Sudan felt that they have been letting down by the world because the global, also international and regional actors keep silent while Bashir is slaughtering the people in the streets. And this is, we can understand the reason behind that. Bashir, to keep his grip on power, tend to provide the regional forces with cheap services, sending troops to fight outside wars that we have nothing to do with, providing information for different security services around the world, and he keep giving these services in a very cheap price. So I do believe that there are many regional forces dream with al-Bashir to have more time in power. But all the time, the determined factor of change is the local factor, is the will of people. This revolution is not ignited because of any outside reason. There are no allies for the people of Sudan, actually. Yeah. They decide to take their destiny by their own, without help from any outside forces. At this time, I do believe the region and the world have two options: to ally with the people of Sudan, or to stand at the wrong direction, under the wrong stand of the history of Sudan. For us, Bashir is done. He will never continue as the president of Sudan. His regime can't keep the power. It's a matter of days, weeks, but the end result is clear for any Sudanese. Their end is come, and we hope, firstly, with the people of the world, to stand by the people of Sudan. Secondly, the governments of the region and the government of the international community to choose what the Sudanese people ask for. Sudanese people want change, want to live, want their dignity, want to live want to elect their leaders and have a government that represent their demands.
What timescale are we operating in here? Is 2019 Bashir's last year in power, or is this his last month? How do you see it rolling out?
Yeah.
No, nobody knows. Nobody knows. It could happen anytime. It could happen today. It could happen after a week. It could happen within months. But I'm pretty sure that we are approaching to the end.
The end game. Well, we'll see. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up next, the pirates